Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to be diving into a book that one of you sent over. It's called The Complete Turtle Trader.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I've heard of the turtle traders, but I'm not really familiar with their story.
Well, you're in for a treat. It's one of those Wall Street legends that really captures your imagination.
Okay, well, let's get into it. So, what's the basic premise of this book? What are we going to learn about these turtle traders?
So basically, it's the story of how a group of ordinary people, I mean, we're talking folks with no financial background whatsoever, were trained to become incredibly successful traders.
Wow, so like anyone can learn to trade. Is that the message?
That's exactly the point Richard Dennis, this legendary Chicago trader, was trying to prove.
Richard Dennis. Okay, so he's the guy behind the turtles.
He is. Dennis made a fortune challenging the Wall Street establishment. Think like hundreds of millions of dollars starting with just a few $100.
That's insane. I bet he had this fancy Ivy League education.
Yeah. No, not at all. Dennis was a self-made man through and through. He even wore jeans on the trading floor, much to the dismay of the Wall Street suits.
What a rebel. So how did he come up with this idea of training ordinary people to trade?
Well, he had this fundamental belief that trading success wasn't about some innate talent or genius. He thought it could be taught, just like any other skill.
That's interesting. So it's more about having a system and the discipline to follow it,
Right.
rather than some sort of magical intuition.
Precisely. And to prove his point, he made a bet with his partner, William Eckhardt, who believed that trading success was more about innate talent.
Okay, I'm hooked. So how did this bet lead to the creation of the turtles?
Well, to settle their argument, Dennis proposed an experiment. He'd recruit a group of people with absolutely no trading experience and train them to become top traders.
Wait, so he was literally going to take people off the street and turn them into Wall Street wizards?
Pretty much. And it's this group of trainees that became known as the Turtles.
The turtles, huh? Where'd that name come from? Sounds kind of random.
The name has a funny origin. Dennis had recently visited a turtle farm in Singapore, and he was struck by how they were growing turtles in tanks. He thought, why not grow traders the same way?
I love that. It's so unconventional, just like Dennis himself. So how did he find these wannabe turtles? Did he put out like a wanted ad or something?
He did. But it wasn't your typical Wall Street job posting. Dennis wasn't looking for finance whizzes or Ivy League grads. He placed an unusual ad that skipped all the usual finance jargon.
So what was he looking for exactly? What kind of qualities did he want in his turtles?
He was after specific personality traits: risk tolerance, independent thinking, and what he called a gambler's mindset.
A gambler's mindset. That's a bit surprising, isn't it? You'd think he'd want people who were cautious and risk-averse.
It might seem counterintuitive, but Dennis wanted people who were comfortable with uncertainty, people who could think in probabilities, not emotions.
Ah, okay, so it's about understanding the odds, like in a casino. You're not always going to win, but you can manage your risk and make calculated bets.
Exactly. And that's a key principle in Dennis's trading system, which he drilled into his turtles.
So tell me about some of the people who responded to this unusual ad. Who were these everyday people who became the legendary turtle traders?
Well, we had quite an interesting mix. One was Jim Melnick, who, get this, was a security guard at the Chicago Board of Trade.
Wow, from guarding the doors to trading millions, huh? That's amazing.
And then you had Mike Shannon. He was a former drug dealer who actually bonded with Dennis over the board game Risk. Dennis saw his strategic thinking and was impressed.
So it wasn't just about financial knowledge. It was about raw intelligence and a knack for strategy.
Absolutely. And then there was Jiri George Svoboda. He was a master blackjack player who saw trading as just another game to be mastered.
So these were people from all walks of life, united by their unconventional thinking and their willingness to take a chance.
Precisely. They were all drawn to this opportunity to learn from a trading legend and potentially make a fortune in the process.
Okay, so we've got our ragtag bunch of turtles. What was the training like? Did Dennis send them off to get MBAs or lock them in a room with charts and spreadsheets for months on end?
You might be surprised to hear this, but the training was incredibly brief, just 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Seriously, that's all it took to turn these folks into trading machines.
That's right. It was an intensive 2 weeks at the historic Union League Club in Chicago. But that's all the time Dennis dedicated to transforming them into traders.
Wow, that's incredible. So in just 2 weeks, he crammed in everything they needed to know about the markets, trading strategies, risk management. I mean, it sounds like drinking from a fire hose.
It was intense, no doubt. But Dennis was a master teacher. He had a knack for simplifying complex concepts and drilling them into his students.
So what exactly did he teach them? What were the secrets of his trading system?
Well, at its core, Dennis's system was all about trend following and risk management. He taught them to identify trends in the market and ride those trends until they reversed.
So it's about catching the waves, so to speak, and knowing when to jump off before it crashes.
Exactly. And to manage risk, he taught them to use stop-loss orders to limit their potential losses on any given trade. He also emphasized the importance of diversifying their portfolios, trading a basket of markets rather than just focusing on one or two.
Okay, that makes sense. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
And he stressed the psychological side of trading. He knew that even with the best system in the world, emotions could sabotage your success.
I can imagine that trading can be incredibly stressful, especially when you're dealing with large sums of money.
Absolutely. So Dennis taught his turtles techniques for managing their emotions, staying disciplined, and avoiding impulsive decisions.
It's like having a poker face, even when the market is going crazy, right?
Precisely. You can't let fear or greed dictate your trades. You have to stick to your system and trust the process.
So these turtles were trained in the art of trend following, risk management, and emotional control. What happened next? Were they immediately unleashed into the market, ready to conquer Wall Street?
Well, yes and no. They were given trading accounts and allowed to start trading, but there was a catch.
Oh, there's always a catch, isn't there?
Dennis gave them varying amounts of capital to manage, and he didn't explain why some got more than others.
That seems a bit unfair, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Like some of them were starting the race with a head start.
It definitely created some tension and competition amongst the turtles. They were all wondering why Dennis seemed to have more faith in some than in others.
Wow, talk about adding pressure to an already intense situation. So they're trading millions of dollars, facing constant scrutiny, and dealing with this internal competition. What was life like for these newly minted turtles?
It was a pressure cooker environment, to say the least. They had to learn to navigate the complexities of the market, manage their emotions, and deal with the constant pressure to perform.
So after just 2 weeks of training, they were thrown into the deep end of the pool and expected to swim with the sharks.
It was a sink-or-swim situation, and not all of them made it.
So who survived? Who thrived?
That's a story for another time. So picking up where we left off, this unequal allocation of capital wasn't just some random whim of Dennis. It actually tied into another key aspect of his system, position sizing.
Position sizing, what's that?
It's all about determining how much money you should risk on any given trade. Dennis didn't want his turtles risking the same amount on every trade.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You wouldn't bet the same amount on, say, a super volatile tech stock as you would on a more stable blue chip company, right?
Exactly. Dennis understood that risk is relative. He taught his turtles to adjust their position size based on the volatility of the market they were trading.
So how did they figure that out? Did they just, like, eyeball it?
Oh no, it was much more systematic than that. Dennis developed this really cool system he called the unit system to determine the optimal position size for each trade.
Okay, so like a unit of risk.
Yeah. And this unit system took into account the volatility of the market, ensuring that the turtles were never risking more than a predetermined percentage of their capital on any single trade.
It was like a built-in safety net.
Exactly. It helped them weather those inevitable market storms and avoid blowing up their accounts. It's like having a seatbelt in a race car.
Yeah, I like that analogy. So they had the training, they had a system for managing risk, and they were off to the races. Did all the turtles achieve crazy success after their 2 weeks of training with Dennis?
Well, not all of them know. Trading is tough. Even with a proven system and all the training in the world, it takes a certain kind of resilience to succeed.
I imagine the pressure must have been intense. It's one thing to learn about trading in a classroom setting. It's another thing entirely to actually put your money on the line and face the real-world consequences of your decisions.
Oh, for sure. And some of the turtles struggled to adapt to the psychological demands of trading. Once the program ended and they were on their own, some found it difficult to maintain the same level of discipline without Dennis's direct oversight.
I can see that happening. It's like when you have a personal trainer at the gym, you're more motivated to push yourself. But once you're left to your own devices, it's easy to slip back into old habits.
That's a great comparison. And some turtles just realized that trading wasn't really for them. It's not a career for everyone. It takes a certain personality type, a certain tolerance for risk and uncertainty.
Yeah, and to be honest, the thought of having to make those split-second decisions with millions of dollars on the line makes my stomach churn.
Right. Not for the faint of heart, for sure. But even for those who were cut out for trading, it wasn't a guaranteed path to riches. The book does a good job of showing that even with a proven system, you need more than just rules to succeed.
So what were the key ingredients for the turtles who did make it big?
Discipline, emotional resilience, and a deep understanding of the psychological side of trading. It's like learning to play the piano, you know? You can learn all the notes and the scales, but to truly master it, you need constant practice, dedication, and the ability to perform under pressure.
That's a good analogy. It's not just about knowing what to do, it's about having the mental fortitude to actually do it, even when the stakes are high.
Exactly. And the book highlights Jerry Parker as one of the most successful turtles.
What made him stand out from the others?
Parker was known for his unwavering adherence to Dennis's system. He didn't try to reinvent the wheel or second-guess the rules. He just followed the system with meticulous precision, trusting that it would generate profits over the long run.
That's a powerful lesson right there. It's tempting to want to tinker with a system to try and outsmart the market, but sometimes the simplest approach is the most effective.
It is. It is. And some of the other turtles did try to tweak the rules or deviate from the system. They let their egos get in the way, thinking they knew better than Dennis, which ultimately led to inconsistent results and sometimes big losses.
It's like trying to bake a cake without following the recipe. Sure, you might be a creative baker, but chances are you're going to end up with a mess.
Ha, that's a good one. And this tension between discipline and ego is something that every trader struggles with. It's a constant battle.
It's like trying to stick to a diet or exercise plan. The ones who succeed are the ones who can resist those temptations and follow the plan, even when they don't feel like it.
Absolutely. Consistency is key. Now, we've talked about Jerry Parker as the poster child for sticking to the system, but then you have a guy like Russell Sands who went in a completely different direction. He actually decided to sell Dennis's trading system, which really sparked a debate about ethics and intellectual property.
Whoa, that's a bold move. It makes you think about the fine line between sharing knowledge and exploiting someone else's intellectual property.
Yeah, it was definitely controversial. And the book doesn't shy away from exploring the ethical complexities of that decision.
Well, on a different note, the book also mentions Curtis Faith as the most successful turtle during the actual program. He generated some amazing returns, but it sounds like he later faced some personal and financial challenges.
Yeah, sadly. It's a good reminder that trading success doesn't guarantee a smooth ride in other aspects of life.
Right. It's a good reminder that money isn't everything. We all face challenges, we all go through ups and downs, regardless of our financial achievements.
Absolutely. Now, what I think is truly remarkable about the turtle story is that it didn't end with Dennis's original experiment. There's a whole other chapter to this story.
You mean there were more turtles? Like a secret society of traders?
In a way, yes. The book talks about these second-generation turtles individuals who learned about Dennis's system indirectly without ever being formally trained by him.
So they were like disciples of the original turtles.
Sort of. They were inspired by the turtle story, and they managed to replicate their success using the same principles.
That's pretty amazing. So you didn't have to be handpicked by Dennis to benefit from his wisdom. Anyone could potentially learn from his teachings.
Precisely. And the book highlights a few of these second-generation turtles, with one of the most notable being Salem Abraham.
Salem Abraham. Okay. Tell me about him.
Well, he was this guy from a small town in Texas, no prior trading experience, no Wall Street connections. He stumbled upon the turtle story through a chance encounter and was immediately intrigued.
It sounds like he was a true believer right from the start.
He was. He saw the potential of Dennis's system and was determined to make it work, even though everyone around him thought he was crazy. Even his own grandfather was skeptical.
Oh, come on. What did Grandpa have to say about it?
Well, he was from that generation that saw investing with these Chicago traders as basically gambling, like throwing money away.
Huh, that's funny. I bet he changed his tune once Salem started making money.
I'm sure he did. But yeah, Salem faced a lot of obstacles early on, but he was persistent. He managed to convince his family to invest a small amount of capital, and from there, his trading career took off.
It's amazing how a chance encounter and a leap of faith can change the course of someone's life. It's like a real-life Cinderella story, only instead of a glass slipper, it's a trading system.
Huh, I like that. And what's even more impressive is that Abraham didn't just replicate the turtle's success, he kind of, surpassed it in many ways.
Really? Tell me more.
Well, he built this thriving trading firm from scratch in, small-time Texas, proving that you don't need to be in a financial hub to make it in the markets.
It's like he was a pioneer bringing Wall Street to Main Street.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And he even adapted Dennis's principles to new markets. He started applying trend following to things like oil and gas leasing projects.
Wow, so he took these core principles of trend following and risk management and applied them to completely different industries.
He did. And it worked. It really highlights the adaptability and the universality of Dennis's system.
It's a reminder that the principles of successful trading can be applied to many different areas of life.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from Abraham's story, that trading success isn't about luck or privilege or being in the right place at the right time.
It's about having a system, managing your risk, and having the discipline to stick to your plan.
Exactly. And Salem Abraham is living proof of that.
Okay, so we've talked about the origins of the turtles, their crazy training, the ones who made it big, the ones who maybe not so much. What are the biggest takeaways here? What can we, the listeners, learn from this whole Turtle Trader saga?
I think the most important takeaway is this idea that trading success, it's not some mystical talent that you're either born with or not. It's a learnable skill. The turtles are proof that anyone with the right mindset, the right tools, and the right training can potentially master the markets.
Yeah, it really challenges that whole Wall Street stereotype. The one where you need a fancy degree and connections to make it in the world of finance.
Absolutely. And remember, Dennis was specifically looking for people with no financial background. He wanted to prove that his system could work for anyone.
He wanted those fresh perspectives,
Yeah.
those outsiders who could see things differently.
Yeah. And one of the things that struck me about Dennis's approach is how much it goes against our natural instincts. Like that whole thing about cutting losses short and letting profits run.
Yeah.
That's so hard to do. Our natural inclination is to do the exact opposite.
Oh, tell me about it. It's so tempting to hold on to a winning trade, thinking it's going to go higher, and then boom, the market turns, and you're left kicking yourself for not getting out sooner.
Right. And it's equally hard to cut your losses. We all have that tendency to hope that a losing trade will turn around, to avoid admitting defeat. But Dennis understood that this kind of emotional decision-making is what kills traders.
So it's about detaching yourself from the emotional roller coaster of the market and making those decisions based on logic and a predetermined plan.
Exactly. And that brings us to another crucial lesson from the turtle's risk management. It's the foundation of any successful trading system, but it's also one of those things that so many amateur traders overlook.
Yeah, they get caught up in the excitement of chasing profits, the thrill of the win, and they forget about protecting themselves from the downside.
Right. They don't realize that one bad trade can wipe out weeks or even months of gains.
Like building a house, you wouldn't start with the roof, right? You need a strong foundation first.
Perfect analogy. And that's exactly what risk management is in trading. It's about protecting your capital so you can stay in the game long enough to let your winning trades run.
And that's something that Dennis really instilled in his turtles, that deep respect for risk.
He did. He taught them to view risk as an integral part of the trading process, something to be managed and mitigated, not ignored or feared.
And it wasn't just about the numbers. The book talks a lot about the mental game, the psychological aspects of trading.
Oh, absolutely. Trading is just as much about psychology as it is about numbers. And Dennis understood this. He knew that even with the best system in the world, your emotions can sabotage your success.
Yeah, we all know that feeling of, getting greedy when a trade is going well or panicking when the market takes a sudden dip.
Exactly. And Dennis's system wasn't about trying to eliminate those emotions. It was about learning to manage them, to control them so they don't control you.
He was looking for that certain mental toughness, that ability to stay focused and disciplined, even when things are going crazy around you.
He was. Remember, he was specifically seeking out individuals with a certain psychological profile. He wanted people who were comfortable with risk, who could handle pressure, who could make those tough decisions under uncertainty.
We saw that in some of those early turtles we talked about, like Jim Melnick, the security guard who worked his way into the program, or Salem Abraham, who persevered even when his own family doubted him. They had that grit, that mental toughness that allowed them to succeed where others might have given up.
And I think that's such an inspiring message. It's not about being born with some innate trading genius. It's about cultivating that growth mindset, having the courage to step outside of your comfort zone, and the determination to keep going even when things get tough.
It's about pushing past those limiting beliefs that tell us we're not good enough, not smart enough, not whatever enough. The turtle traders are a reminder that we're all capable of more than we think we are.
I love that. It's a reminder that anyone has the potential to achieve great things, even if you're starting from zero, even if you don't fit the traditional mold.
And, another thing that struck me about the turtles is how hesitant many of them were to deviate from Dennis's system, even when they had their own
Yeah,
ideas.
that's interesting. It shows the power of having a proven system, a framework to guide your decisions. But it also makes you wonder, when is it okay to break the rules? When should you trust your own judgment over the system?
That's a great question, and I don't think there's an easy answer. It's that constant tension between respecting a proven framework and trusting your own intuition. It's something to think about as you explore the turtle's story and its relevance to your own journey.
It is, isn't it? And ultimately, I think that's one of the biggest gifts that the turtle traders leave us with. It's a reminder that learning is a lifelong process. Even with a solid system, you need to constantly adapt, refine, and maybe even break the rules sometimes.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of the turtle traders, I'm left with this question. What's your turtle factor? What hidden potential are you overlooking? What limiting beliefs are holding you back from achieving your goals?
The turtle trader's story is a call to action. It's an invitation to challenge our assumptions, to embrace a growth mindset, to pursue our passions with that same relentless determination. It's about believing in ourselves, even when no one else does.
Maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that you have what it takes to be a turtle trader in your own right. The world is your trading floor. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.